Today's guest is Peter Drew, a homeopath right here in Perth. Peter has a long history of supporting clients with cancer by using homeopathic treatment, and even though he is no longer practicing, he is using the knowledge and skills he gained by teaching and writing and also mentoring homeopaths when they have tricky cases. He is the author of 3 books, including Carcinosin and the Cancer Miasms, also Miasms, a discussion and summary with emphasis on Carcinosin and the Cancer Miasm, and also 21st Century Homeopathy. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Homeopathy Hangout, where we discuss all things homeopathy from around the world. And now my mum and your host, Eugenie Kruger.
Hello, homies, and a very warm welcome to Homeopathy Hangout. Today we get to hang out with Peter Drew right here from Western Australia. Hi, Peter. There is a doctor here in Perth who studied homeopathy through you, and they said about this Narrogin Homeopathic College. And I'm like, what? I didn't know there's another college here. And then I Googled it and I found you, and now we get to have a chat. So that's great.
Yeah, well, that doctor that mentioned me was actually the reason why Narrogin Homeopathic College started in the first place. I was the advisor for Brauer after I'd done my studies, and which I've already mentioned to you. Yeah. And that gave me the confidence to go on and do Narrogin Homeopathic College. And so a doctor asked me to teach her homeopathy, and she had a chemist friend who wanted to learn as well. So I kept the notes for that. And then with the confidence of having done the advisory line to homeopaths, naturopaths, doctors, chemists, veterinarians, I went on and started Narrogin Homeopathic College. Initially, it was open to all practitioners, any practitioner, any medical practitioner, alternative or mainstream. But now it's become the website's down at the moment because it's being updated. Now I only teach qualified homeopaths. So now it's only postgraduate.
Okay.
So you have to actually have a diploma or the modern, equivalent. So to study at the college.
Okay. And you regularly present courses for the Australian Homeopathic Association as well, hey?
Yeah, I've done I did about 20 years ago, I did a 6-hour presentation on cancer and cancer constitution. About 4 or 5 years ago, Melbourne did AHA, another 6-hour prezi on, this was specifically on cancer. And I've done the ATMS and various other bits and pieces. Yeah, so some 4 hours, some a couple of hours, just tailoring them to the audience, Sometimes, like I've taken a couple of homeopaths. I didn't ask for her permission to mention her, so I won't mention her name.
No, that's fine. Yeah,
so I've taken a couple of homeopaths through the cancer book, understanding and treating the person with cancer. We did one lesson. We did one chapter a week for 8 weeks, for example.
Okay.
Yeah, so, cancer, at one time, became so involved in treating people with cancer, and that all of the clients that I had, every single client had cancer.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that's pretty heavy for you as a practitioner to be dealing with that day in and day out.
I bowed out after that and went back to linguistics for a little while. I just needed a break. That was it was a little bit too heavy.
It's interesting, the linguistics, because obviously the founder of homeopathy, Samuel Hahnemann, he was really into his languages as well. So bit of a parallel there.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That's I've got no idea.
Yeah.
I like languages and I'm apparently good at them. So that's, yeah.
Yeah. What languages do you work with?
Well, I worked with Australian Aboriginal languages. I designed and taught courses in 4 different languages. I studied ancient Greek and studied some Sanskrit, and then studied general linguistics, so scientific analysis of languages. So,
well, that must have helped you with learning all the Latin names for the homeopathic remedies then, hey?
Yeah, I never studied Latin, but the Greek and Latin are similar, and it's not too hard. No.
Yeah, absolutely.
More medical terms, they're all Greek.
Okay.
Homeopathic remedies, they're all Latin.
Yeah, exactly. So, you have a special affinity or a special knowledge or, resonance with cancer and the Cancer Miasm. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about what is the Cancer Miasm and the remedy Carcinosin? What is that made from, and why is your special interest in that area?
Well, I had a friend when I was studying whose wife was dying of cancer. It was too late, I was already, she was already past the point. And I was studying and I started trying to help her, but it was a bit, as I said, too late.
Mm-hmm.
So I became interested in Carcinosin, and that was what I did my thesis on.
Mm-hmm.
And I got every single piece of literature. The British Homeopathic Library had every single book that had ever been written on homeopathy.
Mm-hmm.
And so any single quote, any book, any article, anything, I scoured the web for 5 years. So it took me 5 years part-time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I put together all the information that I felt was of interest and of use to practitioners, and put that together, and that was put out under the heading by B. Jane, the miasms.
Mm-hmm.
I put some other stuff I'd done on the miasms put together to make a book.
Mm-hmm.
But the second half of the book was just simply on Carcinosin and the Cancer Miasm. I don't know if I got off track there, but anyway.
No. Can you tell our listeners what is Carcinosin and what is the Cancer Miasm? Just because I cater to the general public as well. So just trying to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Well, your listeners will know anything that can cause a symptom can cure a symptom. That's the basic principle of homeopathy. I'm talking to your general public.
Yes, absolutely.
Just reminding them.
Yes.
And so Carcinosin, or the Carcinosin that I use, is Carcinosin Co. Actually, the person to import it into Australia. I gave it to
Martin and Pleasance.
Martin and Pleasance. The guy's name was Stasi Kleintutsis. And so I gave it to him. And so Martin and Pleasance, they now, I don't think Brauer actually has still got it. The Co, the 15 cancers. So even though, I just want to say this because I don't want to forget to say this, even though Ramakrishnan says that 15 cancer remedy is not the way to go, I have found it way more powerful. For example, I worked my way up to a 50M in Carcinosin. I got to Melbourne. I was a friend homeopath. I was just bringing the family, and the family were travelling across Australia, and this friend gave me Carcinosin. I was up to 50M, but she only had a CM, and I took the CM, and it was only about the same kick as a 50M. That was Carcinosin breast.
Just
simple.
A single, just made from the breast tumour.
But the 50M, and now the 50M is the remedy that resonates with me. That's not my constitutional remedy, but that's the remedy when I run myself down into the ground.
Amazing. Yeah, because I think the one that they use, the one that I've got is a 58 tumour one. So it's like 58 different tumours. Yeah, I think that's the one that they use. Because I know there's the 15 tumour and then there's the 58 tumour.
Yeah, well, I've found the 15 tumour because it's got a scirrhus cancer in it, which is Ramakrishnan's alternative. So he uses a scirrhus cancer and the breast cancer. That's so scarinum and carcinosin.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I have his cancer book, and I never actually, I just assumed he used the combination tumor. So I just never thought.
No,
I just never thought.
In his new book, he actually says don't use it.
Oh, interesting.
And so that's why I wanted to specifically mention it, because I found it so much more powerful. In fact, the results that he gets, I mean, I do a few extra things. I use nutrition, and we can talk about that later when we talk, if we get to talk about what actually turns a cell from non-malignant to malignant. We can talk about nutrition at that point. But I've found it so much more. So I get a higher rate of helping people with cancer.
Interesting.
Than Ramakrishnan's statistics.
Wow. And his statistics are pretty good. So if you're getting higher than that, that's impressive.
No, I'm not treating anymore, by the way.
You did say, hey.
Yeah, I'm basically only teach and advise. So I get most of my income from advising and teaching single units. So most homeopaths they would just want help with this aspect, because as I said, I'm teaching postgraduates, so
yeah. And if you talk about like a cancer miasm, how would you explain that to like a lay person?
So a miasm, if we just wanted to simplify it down to the basic, it's a disposition to, it's first the vital force. A miasm is a taint on the vital force. So prana in Ayurveda, chi, Chinese medicine. So a taint on the vital force, the life force, the energy that keeps us alive. And there are 5 main taints recognized by homeopaths. and so they won't worry about going into them. But the point is that the Cancer Miasm is a specific taint, and it's made up of actually all of the miasms, the three main miasms, Sora, so I am going to go into it, psychosis, and syphilis. It's a combination miasm, just like tuberculinum is a combination, or whatever other name you want to use, pseudosora or Sora syphilis, or what? I mean, sorry, Sora syphilis or whatever. It's a combination miasm.
So, and I always explained it as like an inherited susceptibility, or like some. I don't know if that would be a good.
That would be the best. That would be a nice, simple way to say it.
Yeah.
I should have. I've actually got the. I've got a definition, but I thought I won't read it because it's a complex. It's a definition for homeopaths. So I thought I'd rather try and explain.
I know we're going to go into some really good stuff today with, Carcinosin and Cancer Miasm. And I thought if we kind of lay the groundwork for our listeners that we could say, okay, this is what it is. And then we can just get into the good stuff from there. So talk to us a little bit about the constitution of somebody that might have like a carcinosin or like a Cancer Miasm, or that sort of taint on their vital force. What would that look like in clinic?
Given that a Carcinosin is made up of the three different miasms, and it's been, for example, Ortega and Agrawal both talk about like a scurus cancer with Sora predominant, an adenoma with psychosis dominant, and then a sarcoma with syphilis dominant. So Carcinosin is just such a wide depth, breadth of remedy, covers an amazing. What is interesting about Carcinosin is that it's like, if you look at the main polycrest, like sulfur, sepia, natma, whatever, their general ratio between mental symptoms and generals and the rest of the whole repertory is about 1 to 10. So 1 mentals and 10 to the rest.
Okay.
Carcinosin is 2 to 3. So it's so much more on the mental side. And so that's where you find the main symptoms arising. The person doesn't have good defenses. They say yes to everything when they really want to say no. They're a people pleaser. Of course, the history of cancer in the family is a major indicator. And what's interesting is if the mother is prescribed Carcinosin, then one homeopath, I won't worry about doing the quote, but just I'll give you an essence of his quote. Yeah. He says, if you give Carcinosin to the parents, the children will undoubtedly need Carcinosin. But what's even more specific is if the mother needs Carcinosin, that the children will definitely need Carcinosin, because it's from the mother that the DNA or the mitochondria are inherited, none from the father.
I have never heard that.
And so what we will talk about later is that cancer is not the result of a genetic mutation. It's the result of the breakdown in the mitochondria, the energy plant to the actual cell. And that's concrete. And they should know it. And I'm going to get too vigorous here, but like, for example, the various institutes. Can we talk about this now?
Oh, you can just, do you know what? I'm just going to sit here. You just go for it, because this is great stuff. Yeah.
So in like the Canadian Cancer Council, the US, the British, you look at all of them, they all say categorically that cancer is the result of genetic mutation. And when you start to look at the facts, that's just so wrong. I'm pretty sure his last name was Israel. So he, in the 1980s, did an experiment where they took the nuclei of 96, I imagine it was 100, but maybe 4 of them failed. They took the nuclei of 96 cancer cells and swapped them with 96 healthy cells. Now, everyone was certain that the healthy cell that received the malignant nucleus was going to become cancerous, but it didn't. 100% normalized, 100%. The cells that received the healthy nucleus in the cancer environment, 98% 99%, 98 point something.
Mm-hmm.
So only one cell didn't turn cancerous. The rest all turned malignant. So it was the environment. It wasn't the nucleus at all. And they worked that out back in 1986. There were people that did Nobel Prize awarded people back in 1931 who pointed out that it was the mitochondria. It's been known for decades, for nearly 100 years.
Wow.
And then, if that wasn't enough, they took healthy mitochondria and they inserted them into a cancer cell, and the cancer cell normalized.
Wow.
So it's the mitochondria. That's where the breakdown is. In that third, like you've got the anaerobic, aerobic. So all cancer cells are mainly get their energy from anaerobic respiration. So cancer is very simply is a cell running on anaerobic respiration. Now, just imagine, so for example, the first two phases of respiration produce 4 ATP. Then in the last phase, we get about 30 ATP produced. So you've got 34, 36 ATP produced in full respiration, aerobic respiration.
I'm just going to nod here because I remember very little about my biochem. That used to just, yeah.
That's okay.
Be very confused. I'm sure somebody listening to this will understand.
Okay, so the energy molecules in the cell.
Yeah, I do remember it stands for adenosine triphosphate.
I'm doing this for the layperson.
Okay,
the energy cells the energy produced, those particular little cells are called ATP. So there's 3 reactions in a cell in normal aerobic, which means using oxygen, respiration. Anaerobic means without oxygen. So a cancer cell is running on anaerobic, that is without oxygen. And so it's running on that first reaction of 2
you can say ATP
molecules of ATP. And then there's another 32, 34 that aren't being produced.
Okay.
So now imagine you get up tomorrow morning, Eugenie, and you've got 6% in your energy. You're going to assign those tasks of your energy to the most important things. You're not going to say do the washing that day. You're not going to iron. You're going to get up, have a shower. The important things. So the cancer cell, figuratively speaking, says the same things to itself. It says, well, I've only got 2. I'm running on 2 ATP. It produces it while it just produces. That's why it eats sugar, because glycolysis, glucose, is the breakdown of the first stage of ATP, the first stage in that cycle. Anyway, so it produces 2, and you've got 8% of your energy. So you just say, well, I'm only going to do the important. So cancer says, well, I don't want to die. That takes energy. So we won't do that. Normal apoptosis, cell death, occurs in mutant malignant cells, but it doesn't in the cancer cell because the cancer cell hasn't got the energy to do it, or it doesn't want it. It's got to focus on one important thing. It says, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some energy to turn on reproduction. Now it takes energy to turn off reproduction. So it says, well, I won't do that. I'll just use my energy to reproduce and produce another cell. And I'm not going to die as well because that takes energy. So you've got a cell that just continues to reproduce and has decided it's not going to, figuratively speaking, has decided it's not going to die. And
I've never heard it explained like that before. That actually really makes sense.
Well, in Chapter 7 of the book, Understanding and Treating a Person for Cancer, it took me about 20 years to put all that information together, and I had to get to the bottom of cancer to work out what's the best way to treat it, because there's 3 ways to treat a person, because we don't treat cancer, treat a person with cancer, and that is, first of all, you can burn it or poison it or cut it out. Well, just leaving aside the cutting out for the moment, we'll just do burning and poisoning. Burning and poisoning weaken the cell. What's actually going on when you use nutrition and other things is you actually strengthen the cell. You turn it back to a healthy cell, and then it has the energy to kill itself, apoptosis. So those 2 methods are in harmony with each other. The using homeopathy They've done tests in labs where they put carcinosin on cancer cells. That's there for people to research out there if they want to. And the cancer cells, so there's that. We've got the burn poison, we've got use homeopathy and use nutrition. Nutrition and homeopathy are in harmony. They're both getting the cell to become normal and do the right thing and kill itself. And that's what homeopathy and nutrition do. And burning and killing work the opposite. I could tell a story about one of my first clients.
Yeah, please do.
So what happened was he had a brain tumor, and they managed to remove about half of it. Now, he was bullied into going on but he had to wait 12 weeks to have chemo, because they'd done an operation, they'd removed half of the tumour. So in that 12 weeks time, that was when he was taking the two remedies. It turned out to be carcinosin and phosphorus. And normally when you go and cut into a tumour, the old wives' tale about putting it to the air is just a load of rubbish. I don't know if you've heard that one. It grows after it goes to the air. That's what actually happens is that when you cut away half of the tumour, then what you've done is you've doubled the space for the tumour, and you've also doubled the amount of nutrients that tumour is receiving through the blood supply. So that's the reason why it grows so quickly afterwards. So normally that's what happens. But in this case, because he was using homeopathic treatment, and we were treating the person, and the person's energy increased, then the cancer began to shrink. And so the cancer was then half the size again when they did the scan. So we've got now a quarter of the original size. Many of my clients asked, should I have an operation? Should I do this? Should I do that? I say that's your decision. But personally, I would choose to have operation removed, because then you're dealing with a smaller mass. But of course, the other things I would go for the positives, turn the cells healthy and get them to kill themselves. So he was when he started, so it was shrinking, and the doctors got his wife aside and talked him into going ahead with the chemo. Of course, as you know, chemotherapy, antidotes, homeopathic remedies, and it didn't work. He was dead 2 months later.
Oh, that's such a shame. What a good result, though, to have shrunk the tumour by, half again. That's a short period of time. I
mean, it was sad, but I actually learnt from it, because that was my early days of treating. It was the first time I'd ever not used a Ramakrishnan remedy. I mean, phosphorus is in his second book, but it wasn't in his first book. So I was still working 20 years ago from, 18, 19, whatever it was, years ago from the first book.
Interesting.
So yeah, but it built my confidence anyway, regardless.
Yeah, amazing. And how do you use the nutrition alongside? Like, have you got any?
Okay, so because we haven't established the idea that it's the mitochondria where the problem is. So what we want to do is we want to get the mitochondria working again. There was an author named Lester Packer. He was the advisor to the United Nations on nutrition. And at Berkeley University, he had, while he was still alive, he had the Packer Lab, a laboratory named after him while he was alive. So he's one of the leading nutritionists in the world. What he used to do is he'd take a piece of tissue and he would poison it, just about kill it, just take it just before it dies, and then he would revive it. And he would use different nutrients to see which ones worked the best from different poisons. And he came up with what he called the antioxidant miracle. And it was vitamin C, vitamin E, CoQ10, and alpha-lipoic acid. So I read his book and I wondered what application they have to cancer. And I looked at the research on those 4 nutrients in cancer. And lo and behold, vitamin E transports oxygen through, because the wall of a cell is a fat or a lipid.
And E is fat soluble.
Yeah, exactly. And vitamin E is a fat as well, or a lipid. So vitamin E transports oxygen through the cell wall.
Interesting.
Vitamin C transports oxygen within the cell. And then CoQ10 is a fuel for the mitochondria, and alpha-lipoic acid repairs damage to the mitochondria. So as I said, he calls it the antioxidant miracle. So if you use one of those things, say if you wanted to assign that a point value of 2 and assign each of the others a point value of 2, they don't work out to be 8. They work out to be something like 128.
Wow.
They multiply the effects of each other. And so when I was helping people with cancer, I said, this is non-negotiable. You must take these 4 nutrients, actually it was 5, I said selenium as well, while you're trying to improve your health.
That's amazing. And selenium, because our soils in Australia is pretty deficient, or?
Well, that's true, but what they did a study on selenium, and they thought it was a no-go, but then they reassessed the study years later, and they found that the people that are taking selenium, the cancer had not metastasized to important organs. So the skin cancers remained skin cancers on those that were taking the selenium, whereas those that weren't taking the selenium metastasized internally. So selenium has some property where it protects the higher organs in the hierarchy of importance.
Okay. Cool.
Skin being least important, of course.
Yeah. I wrote a little note here.
That's for your non-homeopathic.
Yeah, exactly. I wrote a little note here just, a few minutes ago when you were saying just about the mitochondria and how they were saying that, a lot of people think that your genetics predetermine whether you are predisposed to cancer. But Bruce Lipton, the author of The Biology of Belief, he actually says only 2% of chronic illness can be put down to genetics, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah. Well, you would have to be to a degree disposed. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you've raised this, Eugenie, because just because someone is predisposed to something, they may never come under the circumstances that cause that snap, that break. So I would disagree with that man. I would say it's the predisposition plus the combination of the events. In fact, I'd like to read you a quote.
Yeah, please
on
do.
that right now. This, at the turn of the 20th century, the cancer just went out of control. And they did a study in 1915 on cancer because it proliferated so much. And we say proliferated so much. Well, in the 1870s, cancer was about 6 in 100,000. And I think it was 1912, it was 1 in 43,000 out of 100,000. Was, the majority of the deaths were cancer. But what they've done today is they've split cancer up into, if you don't die of cancer anymore, you die of lung cancer. So because they don't want to have cancer seeming to go out of control, which it is. Yeah. So what they've done is now they call lung cancer a disease and breast cancer a disease and liver cancer a disease. It's no longer cancer anymore. Whereas prior to, around 2012, 2013, they looked at cancer as a whole, but they don't do that anymore. So stats are a little bit hard to get unless you want to sit there and add up every single thing.
Interesting. Yeah, they like to do that now and again with the statistics to make things sound a little bit different, or they give things different names. Or
anyway, they did a study in 1915 because things were getting out of control, and they said this is a study of all of the studies, all of the papers, all of the research from all over the world was put together, and they came to the conclusion that civilization, this is in 1915, or environmental change, I'll tell you the name of the paper for those out there that want it, was called the 1915 report was entitled The Mortality from Cancer Throughout the World, and it was authored by Frederick L. Hoffman. He was the American Society for the Control of Cancer. He was the head of that. And they said civilization or environmental change was both connected with the incidence and increase of cancer. And he went on to say, there can be little doubt that the various influences grouped under the title civilization play a part in producing a tendency to cancer. And that's been the same, by the way, with the miasms as a whole. We know that, like, for example, in the proliferation of tuberculosis, it was the long hours, the factory life, that new situation that caused the proliferation of tuberculosis. Go back to the time when bathing was thought to be wrong, and then the Sorif miasm was at its predominance. And so today the cancer miasm is way predominant, out of control.
Well, I tell you, I sometimes feel a little bit guilty because there are not many clients that walk out of my clinic without a dose of Carcinosin. I sometimes feel like I'm overprescribing it, but it is the one remedy that, even though it would be my most prescribed remedy in my clinic, I have hardly ever had aggravations from that remedy. It just seems like all my clients that I give it to just do so well on it. And one of the main things I hear after I prescribe it is people being able to put better boundaries in place for themselves, like saying, for the first time in my life, I'm able to say no to things. I'm finally doing things just for me and, getting their energy back and being able to express themselves better. Like, it's just such a wonderful remedy. I love prescribing it.
Yeah, look, in all the homeopaths that come to me for advice that I've taught, everyone said the most prescribed remedy they use is Carcinosin.
Yeah.
So it's not a secret.
Yeah.
I hope it's not just between us. But anyway, going back to that, what we were talking about before, that guy who said that about the genetic disposition. So it is genetic disposition. You can't. I mean, unless, for example, if you just rub a carcinogen on your skin forever, you're eventually going to get cancer, whether you're predisposed to it or not. But here's what one study came up with, and you probably heard this before, Eugenie, but being under constant pressure from an ongoing stress or a major shock on the emotional level usually occurs 18 to 24 months prior to diagnosis of cancer. Wow. So there's that final snap straw. And this is a quote from 1926. I chose the oldest quote that I could find to emphasize the point on. Remember I said before, Carcinosin is very mental emotional. It's so much more. Metaurinum is the only other remedy similar to Carcinosin. A major remedy. There's probably others, but I've analysed quite a few, and that. Anyway, this author, by brain-based evidence was a psychological study of cancer by Dr. Alida Evans, and she said that cancer is a symbol of something going wrong in the patient's life, a warning to take another road. So that, going back to that modern recent quote of that other medico he came up with what's called the cancer personality. I started off to do that, but then Dr. Brody's personality was, I interviewed all the health practitioners, mainstream. I made certain I didn't interview anyone that was a homeopath because I didn't want their understanding of Carcinosin to colour the cancer personality profile that I was putting together. But I found that Dr. Brody's profile covered more than half of what I'd put together. I think it was about 3/5 of his comments, which I found exactly the same. I only found another 2/5 on top of him in my breakdown of it.
So what are some of the things that you found about the type of person, like the type of personality of people that are susceptible to cancer? Okay. So this is people who are susceptible to cancer and who, by definition, might benefit from the remedy Carcinosin.
Yeah, I'd like to read the list so that...
And actually, while you're reading it, quick question. Why do you think Carcinosin has more mental symptoms than the other miasmatic remedies?
Because that's actually where the final stress happens.
Okay.
Remember that was the point that I was actually... Thank you for asking that, because that was the point that I was trying to get across by reading from that doctor back in 1926, where she said it's an indicator to take a different road. Okay. You come under such emotional stress, just, now you've got to make some changes.
I was just thinking, I've had it was just a really interesting experience. One of the newer podcasts, because we're launching our 100th episode on Friday. You're welcome to come along if you want. We're having a big party in Mount Hawthorn with 100 guests and lots of prizes. And yeah, it'll be awesome. There'll be a few homeopaths there as well. We had an episode recently, episode 92, I think. And it was on rheumatology by a Indian homeopath. And that one has a completely kicked ass. It's gotten more downloads than Jan Schalten and Rajan Sankran's episode and Dana Ullman, more than any other episode. And I think it's because rheumatology is actually, there's so many people with, joint complaints. And as you're talking, I was just thinking, oh my gosh, I think your episode is going to kick ass of all the episodes, because cancer is such a huge, huge thing. So I think it should attract a lot of listeners.
Yeah, that's good. We get rubrics for remedies from 3 different places. First of all, we get them from what we call approving. And I hope your listeners are...
That's been covered, yeah.
Yep, sure. So, and the second way we get them is from clinically cured symptoms. So if we were to give a remedy and the person and we were treating a particular complaint and there was another complaint that the people had and that complaint was cured, that's a clinically cured symptom. Then the third place we get symptoms from is the disease itself. So that was
poisonings.
Yeah, that's sort of covered in provings.
True, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, but it's not a real good proving. But anyway, here we go. Being highly conscientious, dutiful, responsible, caring, hardworking, and usually above average intelligence. Exhibiting a strong tendency to carry other people's burdens and taking on extra obligations and often worrying for others. Having a deep-seated need to make others happy, tending to be people pleasers, often having a history of closeness. This is Dr. Brody's summary, by the way, with a lack of closeness with one or both parents, harbouring long-suppressed toxic emotions, reacting adversely to stress, showing an inability to resolve deep-seated emotional problems. And other health practitioners notice that in early childhood, they tend to have been unloved or abused, as a result of which they have low self-esteem. They try to please others and draw their sense of self-worth from other people's opinions and strive to be high achievers. They beat up on themselves if they don't reach the high standards that they've set. So that was just the essence of a cancer personality. But as just to emphasise to your listeners, the point is that even though that's a cancer personality, there has to be a trigger. So if you're under constant stress, anyone's under constant stress, any situation, it's unhealthy to remain in that. You need to get out because you're going to break where your weakness is. You'll break eventually.
Yeah, you can keep going. You were going to talk to us about what turns a cell from malignant to non-malignant.
I think we sort of covered that before.
Okay, no, that's fine. I was just wondering if there was anything else. You've got a list of things there that you wanted to chat about. Like, what is it? I just want to make sure that you have everything that's on your list. Like, what else do you want to have a chat about?
Okay, so in the book on the cancer person, in treating the person, understanding and treating the person with cancer, one thing that I think homeopaths would be especially interested in, and Ramakrishnan in his seminars, 2-day seminars, never ever covers how to choose a cancer remedy. And so that's probably the most often question I get asked. How do you actually choose a remedy for the person that's got cancer? So it's easy. We've got one, Carcinosin code. So how do you choose the other one? Well, basically it's you turn Kent's hierarchy upside down. So if you're looking for a person who's got cancer and they've got a lung cancer, well, that's where you start. The first thing on your list has to be a lung cancer remedy. And then you look etiology. Etiology that's the only sort of a little tiny flaw with the turning Kent's hierarchy upside down. That's a quote by what's his name, Robin Murphy, by the way. That was his idea.
Oh, interesting.
But etiology is also got to be factored in if it's known. For example, anyway, it's got to be factored.
And just for our listeners, etiology is the thing that caused it in the first place. So what was the trigger?
Yeah, for example, a person might be have the view that people view him as nothing. And so and he's in that situation where he's belittled, treated as if he's nothing, regardless of whether he is or he isn't. The fact is that's what he believes. And that can be an etiology. And so that's an example of a cause, and also emphasising the mental side of that. So it's usually a mental emotional straw that breaks in that 18 to 24 months prior.
Yeah, I was actually just about to ask you, so how did they come to this 18 to 24 months prior to the diagnosis?
That was a study Brody had done, tens of thousands. Dr. Brody, I'll just leave it at that, had done, you punch in Dr. Brody and cancer and cancer personality. There'll be tons of information on him. He came to that conclusion. As I said, he'd done tens of thousands of cases. And that statistic has been repeated in numerous works that I've looked at over the years. So it seems to harmonise. I remember a young man, I asked her, did anything happen in the last 2 years to you? And he said no. So, but then after that I do a timeline.
Mm.
and worked back. So I asked the question twice in essence. And we worked back, and about a year and a half prior to his development of leukemia, he'd been hit in the head by his mother with a cricket bat, which ended their relationship. He woke up 2 days later in hospital from a coma. And so he didn't remember, but so just getting back to the etiology factor. So, yeah, it turned out he had leukemia and etc. But it was Nat Sulph was the remedy. And
Amazing.
It was interesting because the doctor had sent him to look for an alternative health practitioner and said he would monitor him while he was undergoing so he was sent by a medical doctor.
Amazing.
The doctor 2 months said, I'm 100% certain you're on the right track. Stay with this and you'll make it, no problems.
So Peter, have you ever found that there's a cancer that homeopathy doesn't respond to?
No.
That was kind of a rhetorical question.
I had to think for a second. No, because you just the organ, even sometimes they're pretty, obscure, the places, but you can narrow it down. I use 3 repertories. I use Kent Murphy and Van Zandt, and I've still got the old radar with Synthesis 9 on it. So that does me. I can find, there's not too much I can't find. There's nothing I can't find. And then you've got, of course, you've got the material, the homeopathic library that goes with it, all the books. So you've got tens of thousands of pages of information.
Have you got any favourite homeopathic cancer books? There's obviously Ramakrishnan's one. And any other favourite? No? Okay.
No.
Got it all in your head.
No.
Your own one, obviously.
Well, if I didn't believe it was good, I wouldn't
have spent all that time writing it, hey?
Sure. And I believe choosing the remedy is what's lacking in homeopathic knowledge, how to choose the remedy. That is, as I said, a 2-day seminar, you'd think a person would walk away knowing how to choose a remedy on cancer. But they don't. You listen to his seminars and people are screaming out constitutional remedies. Whereas you need first and foremost, you need a cancer remedy. Then you need the symptoms related to the cancer. That's the second thing. Of course, etiology, we've already covered that. So if you haven't got etiology or you don't know it, then the second thing is the symptoms related to the cancer. It's very simple, very, very simple to choose a remedy for a person with cancer, as long as you go about it methodically.
So I know you don't treat people for cancer yourself. I don't know if you want to go into why.
Well, we don't treat cancer.
Oh, no. Sorry. Let's rephrase that. I know you don't treat patients with cancer. So yourself, did you want to go into why?
Okay, well, this is off the record.
Oh, okay. No, if it's off the record, then that's because you did have a chat with me about how things kind of went missing. Okay. But so I just wanted to know if you wanted to have something on the podcast about that as well.
Okay. No, basically it just became too much. It was just too much energy. So I basically went back to linguistics for a while.
Well, that's good that you put that boundary in place yourself.
Obvious. And so I only treat friends and family now and teach that because just the energy. That it takes to treat them with cancer.
I don't know if there are many homeopaths in Australia that kind of specialize in that area because we have to be so careful with everything these days. We can't even say that our remedies work. Like it's just so silly.
Well, that was part of the reason why I stopped treating, because every time I sent an email to someone with the word cancer in it, or they sent me an email with the word cancer in it, they didn't arrive.
Yeah, interesting.
So that and that wasn't some crazy notion. That was real. We'd speak over the phone. I said that. I said that.
Yeah.
And they were just numerous. It was over about, I changed my email address about 3 or 4 times.
How bizarre, hey.
My phone number and everything.
All right. So Peter, how can people get hold of you if they want to get a copy of your book, or if they want to find out a bit more about about what you do, or is it just the courses that you do at the moment, or do the? Yeah. Well,
so as I think I mentioned to you before, that my website, because I've switched from teaching health practitioners to only teaching qualified, post homeopaths. My web designer got married and he stopped. stopped doing web designing. So
how inconvenient of him.
it was terrible. Yes. So, but I'm redesigning my web page. But for the moment, if anyone wants the books, it's 8 letters: Pete, P-E-T-E, and then D for Delta, E for Echo, and D for Delta, R for Romeo. So Pete, D-E-D-R @gmail.com. Just if you send me an email, the cancer book is $20 and the course book is $40. I just on that, while we're talking about the course book, I just wanted to, that'll be right.
I was just thinking maybe there's a nice web designer listening to this that wants to make you a nice website.
Okay, this is, so out of the people that have done the course, one of them was the president of the AHA in South Australia. And I asked him, I phoned him last night. It was lucky that we didn't do Friday because I asked him what would he mind if I mentioned him. Yeah. And he said no, and he would recommend the course, and he was happy to be mentioned. His name. So, and he said that the course, I said, would you recommend the course to others? He said yes. And I can't for the life of me find the quotation. But he said that, here it is. He said it helped me, the main way it helped me was in choosing the correct remedy. I'm now more confident, more effective, and more efficient after having done your course.
Oh, that's great.
With the course, what I do is from the very start, the first chapter, we look at the miasms, and we see how they relate to the person's constitution. So constitution and miasmatic load of the person are considered, and then relationship of remedies to that. So analyse remedies miasmatically as well. So that does give you more confidence when you're certain you've matched the miasmatic load of the person with the miasmatic load of the remedy. And you can find that in books like Agrawal, Banerjee. You can find it in your repertory under, like under psychosis and Sora. You'll find out what the load of, you can work out the load of the remedies. And of course, the largest chapter in the book is on the miasms, chapter 4. So we look at the organon, then we look at the miasms, then we look at remedies themselves and analysing. Just one case, Eugenie, we got time?
Please.
So this is just to emphasise the idea of how knowing knowing the person's constitution and their miasmatic load, how it helps. I'll use a simple one. So the person's symptoms were up and down in intensity. Arsenicum acted. So the homeopath has come to me. They had prescribed arsenicum. It acted well and did half the job, and they're not sure of what the next remedy is. So this is, I get the phone call. Can you help me with this case and a few others? The person's constitutional remedy was Nux vomica, and the remedy was already clear to me before we even started to repertorise, because first we see the tubercular miasm active, because that's shown by the up and down in the way that the remedy, the changeableness of the symptoms. And second, we consider what follows arsenicum well. We look in relationships with remedies. We see what remedies follow others well. And those relationships, we talk quite a bit about relationships in the course and how to use them. But so we look at that, what follows arsenicum well. And then third, we ask what type of remedy is Nux vomica? Is it shallow or deep? Well, it's a shallow remedy. It only acts, you look at the depth of action by the number of days. I know a lot of homeopaths poo-poo that, but these guys, we're talking about guys that spent their whole lives on homeopathy. Gibson Miller, for example, wrote the best article that's ever been written, and all other homeopaths draw on his article on how to choose a remedy. That's the best article that was ever written, and everyone has basically plagiarised that since he wrote it. Now, he wrote in the back of Daraka, you've got the chart, remedy relationships.
I've got the book, but it's at the clinic.
Yeah, and so he wrote that. He didn't waste his time adding the number of days of duration of action just for fun. So basically what you're looking at there is the action of a 1M remedy. That's from my assessment of what's going on. And so Nux vomica is a shallow remedy that acts, about a week, I think it is maximum. And so we want a deeper acting remedy. Nux vomica gives us the clue. What's the chronic of Nux vomica? First of all, we worked out that a miasm was involved because of the up and down, so it's a tubercular miasm. Secondly, now we want a deeper acting remedy than Nux vomica, and we want a remedy that follows arsenicum well. Sulfur was just easy pie. And when you did the repertorization, it was sulfur easy. So we knew it was sulfur. So that's the advantage of using miasms and the constitution and the remedy relationships to make yourself certain of your remedy choice. That's what that homeopath that said about it. He was more certain of his choice of remedy after it. Yeah.
So Peter, what would you like to finish our episode off on today? Have you got any final messages that you want to give to our listeners?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I sent you a picture and I sent you an email.
Oh, I did wonder why you sent me that picture. The repertorization.
That's the repertorization I did 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
When COVID first broke out. And I collected from 3 different places around the world all the symptoms of COVID and the number of people. These were 3 places that listed, like, for example, 700 patients and 50% had this symptom, 90% had this symptom. And so I rated each symptom according to the percentage that had it.
Okay.
And I came up with 2 remedies, arsenicum and phosphorus, and they're in front of the others. And what's interesting about arsenicum...
They were 2 huge remedies for COVID, or they still are.
Well, what's interesting about them is that in the periodic table, I mean, I know it's arsenicum, it's an oxide of arsenicum, but nonetheless, it's an arsenicum ion is in there and a phosphorus ion is in there. So you've got, in the periodic table, they line up. They've both got the same number of electrons in their outer shell. And phosphorus and arsenicum are complements of each other. Phosphorus is the left-sided, arsenicum is the right-sided. So I thought we got a winner here. Okay. And so every single client that has come to the homeopaths in the first week before, we're not talking about after the first week, Eugenie, but within the first week, 100% of the symptoms have evaporated using arsenicum or phosphorus.
Wow.
And so
any particular potency?
1M, 10M.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so because it's intense, the intensity of got to match that. Personally, I had COVID and took arsenicum 1M 3 doses. I gave myself 3 doses of arsenicum 1M about every half an hour, 1 hour, and it was holding it at bay, but it wasn't really doing anything. So I switched to phosphorus straight away, 1M, and that started advancing on it, but then it started losing on it. So then I switched to 10M. So this is 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Till 6 o'clock at night. Took my first dose of 10M. Symptoms gone. Totally
That's
asymptomatic.
Amazing.
So in 8 hours, that was over. And I've had other people who've had just 1 dose of 1 remedy, and a number of homeopaths are using this method.
That's pretty amazing. And you're in the age group that is supposed to be suffering with COVID the most, right? And you managed to kick it in 8 hours.
Yeah. I'd like to tell you about how to prepare for immunisation, but perhaps we've gone past the time.
How long do you think it will take?
Quick as possible.
Yeah. So okay, talk to us about that.
3 principles. First of all, the first principle is to remove the susceptibility. So you do that by giving a 200C of the immunisation a week prior, and then the 30C on the morning. The 30C in the immunisation potency. I'm going very
the remedy made from the vaccine itself.
Straight after the immunisation, you give a 200C immediately after. So the first principle is remove susceptibility. Second is antidote. And 200C is the best antidote for anyway. So 200C, and then the day after you start through your 3 days in a row, skip a day, Carcinosin 30, and then again the 200C and that's been mainly used on children That's where it started from. In fact, my daughter became a nurse, and that was the reason why I became so involved in wanting to find out how to prepare for immunisation, because she had to be immunised to keep a job.
Yeah.
But all the children have sailed through, and all the people have sailed through who've used that method.
Amazing. That's all right. Yeah, I've get amazing results with detoxing clients from vaccines in the clinic as well. Or just supporting. I don't know if I'm allowed to say detoxing. I don't know what we're allowed to say these days. It just feels like the medical profession can go around with. Yeah. Anyway, should be so careful. It was lovely to have a chat with you today, Peter. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I know this is going to be very helpful for a lot of our listeners to listen to this. And and I tell you what, I feel I'm probably jinxing myself, which is not great because the podcast party's on Friday, but I feel like I'm the only person in Perth that hasn't had COVID yet. I almost feel like I'm missing out. Like literally all my clients have had it. Some of my staff, like everyone I know has had it, and I have not. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe I feel like there's something wrong with me that I haven't had it yet.
Well, I think it was Dorothy Cooper who said the best prophylaxis is the constitutional remedy.
Yeah.
So you're taking your constitutional, or are you taking arsenicum 200 or phosphorus 200?
No, neither of those. I think I just, I don't know. I don't know.
You might be in good nick.
We'll put it down to that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if I've got some teeth. So whereabouts? Can you send us a text on?
Oh yeah, I'll send you the details for it. Sure, it'll just be a bunch of women. There'll be like one or two guys, but you're welcome to pop in and say hi. And if it's too many women for you,
it's Mount Lawley. I'd like to just it'll be in Mount
Hawthorn. So
Mount Hawthorn, I should say.
Yeah. So it's not that far.
That's just down the road from me.
Excellent.
On Elston Park.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's really nice and close. Awesome. Okay. I'll introduce you to some homeopaths.
I'll let you go.
Okay, all the best. See ya. Bye.
I'll only be there if I get my teeth done.
No worries.
Prior to it.
Just so you know, the episodes are scheduled up to about the 16th of September at the moment. So it'll be a little while, about 6 weeks or so before it comes out.
Can you just text me on how to get through?
Yeah, I'll email you.
Yeah. That'll be great.
No worries. See you. Bye.
Okay, see ya. Good on you. Thank you. Bye.